Oh, and wayfinding as well. So key transit, you have this map. This map is your green line and your orange line, and the wonderful little trolley you have that I think adds a lot to the livability of your downtown. People use it. I've taken this map and I've transcribed it on my anchors and paths, my key anchors and paths map, and I'm adding now, see in yellow, the new train station. The arrival of this train station changes the dynamics of your downtown, allows us to rethink this system. The system for me is a little confusing. It's a little hard to read. I guess the easiest version might be this version. Both of the systems, the key to make a bus that's trying to function like a trolley, feel like a trolley, is to give it a route like a trolley, and not a meandering bus-like route. Part of it is making it look like a trolley, but part of it is making it act like a trolley. And if it acts like a trolley, it'll tend not to have loops. Trolleys tend to be on the same street, and it will tend to have a simple route. And here your routes are kind of L-like, kind of wiggly, kind of C-shaped. And what I'm suggesting also is that the loops, look how big the loops are. The general discussion now, and there's a wonderful specialist named Jarrett Walker who wrote a book called Human Transit, where he talks about this, is that loops, the better understanding now is that people they feel disoriented by loops, and that loops do nothing to increase ridership. Even though they give you the perception that you're reaching near more addresses, they don't give the actuality of reaching near more addresses, because you need to get to both sides of the train. You need to get to the vehicle in both directions. So they actually lengthen walks. They make the system more confusing, and they don't do anything to help with ridership. So these are your loops, which I'm suggesting getting rid of. And I'm proposing this system. And what this system shows, then, is a green line. Let's start with the yellow line. The yellow line no longer goes up to the Kravitz Center, except when there's a show. Because there aren't that many shows. So you divert it at show start and show finish to get it there. But you take it really where it's supposed to go, which is to the Convention Center and the Convention Center Hotel, which allows you to take a straight line right down Rosemary and not divert onto Sapodilla, except when there's a show. There's a turnaround. And remember, this thing can maneuver like a small truck. There's a turnaround at the hotel. Oops, hold on. Yeah, there's a turnaround at the hotel. And then you run all along Rosemary. You come east to get to the edge of the train station, and then you shift over to Clematis, and then you have a little loop. So this is kind of the tourist loop. It connects the Convention Center Hotel through City Place, down Rosemary, and then down Clematis to the water where it turns around very quickly. The other loop is the one that was, the other route is the one that was looping around through this neighborhood. And now it connects straight to the train station, where it can make a 3-point turn in the parking lot and come back. So now you know Totora is the street, not looping on many different streets. And comes down again, goes by the train station right here, and then, like in your current system, it's together with the other one for several blocks so that you can make a transfer. And then it heads down Dixie, down Olive. Why Olive and not Dixie? Well, that's the straight path. First of all, it's more central in this part of the downtown. It's further from the other loop. And remember, Olive's two-way now. And it's taking you to the Norton Art Museum. Mostly so it can pick up all the students that are down here in this area. So it's a little bit longer, but it's more direct. So I'm recommending this transit map as opposed to this transit map. It's just simpler. It feels more like a train. And then the other thing, of course, is frequency. And I think you need to commit, if you really want this to become a vehicle that's well used, as it is, you can clearly see at certain hours, it needs to go late into the night, as I guess it does on some nights. But the headway, really the key threshold for headway is about 12 minutes. If you've got to wait more than 12 minutes, you won't wait. Many people won't wait. So that requires an additional vehicle or two. I really do recommend it. I think it'll pay off as this special. You have not a unique condition, but you have kind of an unusual condition here, where you've got a lot of cool things that just need to be connected better together, and can be connected better together with this vehicle. So I'm very excited about that possibility. Now, housing has to do with the mix of uses. Most places in America, the most walkable places have the most mix of uses, like in Manhattan. And in most places where I work, Florida cities less so, but in most places where I work, the jobs-housing balance is off dramatically in the downtown. Many more jobs than housing. You have the same thing, just not as much as other cities which don't have beautiful views and water nearby that attract high-rise developers. But still, you have an undersupply of housing in your downtown. And you have an oversupply of parking in your downtown. Or I should say, let's put it differently. I always ask, what's missing or underrepresented? It's housing. Then what is valuable and being wasted? And that is parking, specifically surface parking lots. And what do I mean by that? We can use garages to leverage housing. I understand that you've already made some forays in this direction. What I'm suggesting is a more formalized program, a more emphatic program that acknowledges the opportunities that your partly empty parking garages are offering you. I worked in Lowell, Massachusetts, where they had 5 downtown lots that were half empty during the day and empty overnight, and they used it to develop thousands of loft apartments by assigning spaces in the garages to developers who could bring those spaces to their banks and say, look, my building is parked. I don't have to build parking, which by the way might cost 30% more than not building it, because these parking spaces exist. So here's my very quick analysis. You've got the PD garage, these are the city garages downtown, PD, Clematis, City Center, Hibernia, and Banyan. Banyan is full, okay? The other 2, though, have significant daytime vacancies and principally larger weekend and evening vacancies. Doing the math, and the math involves realizing that the tenants of a building, some will drive to work, some will not. So you need to have a bunch of spaces in the garage just to start. But then it helps to have more on the weekends and evenings, because that's when people come home. So you want more spaces on the weekends and evenings available than during the day, and you need to have a certain number during the day. And based on that math, you've basically got room for 150 cars in the PD garage, 350 cars in the Clematis garage, 90 cars in the City Center garage, and 300 cars in the Hibernia garage. So, for example, the Hibernia garage, combining this now with our missing tooth diagram, the Hibernia garage could put 300 apartments on these sites that we've determined need buildings. The City Center garage could put 90 apartments on these sites, which are in our missing tooth map. The Clematis garage could put 350 units on these streets. Again, the light green is the primary network of walkability, and the dark green is the secondary network of walkability. And then finally, the PD garage could put 150 units near it. 890 units could be floated by these empty spaces in your parking garage. So if you do the math, 30% discount on 890 units, it's a lot of money. So I'm only suggesting that you more emphatically pursue this opportunity to encourage more housing in your downtown by giving them, for a fee perhaps, but giving them the parking that no one's using in your garages. Parking policy. This is Don Shoup. I've introduced you to him before. He wrote The High Cost of Free Parking. It is clear to me, and this is what a typical parking plan of the sort that cities have been doing now for a couple decades looks like. It is clear to me, in the same way that the laws of physics apply in West Palm Beach, that the laws of parking also apply in West Palm Beach. And what Don Shoup outlines in this book very clearly and reminds us of is that the parking meter was invented by merchants, for merchants, to churn the cars on the curb, to make sure the wealthy shoppers could find a space to park, understanding that those with less money and more time are happy to circle and park further away. And to maximize the revenues from their businesses, you want to price parking around the clock at that price that will generate a certain amount of vacancies on all blocks at all times. And Don Shoup says 85% occupancy. You want to have one empty space per block face. And that means, and by the way, when you do that, and the way you convince the merchants who don't remember the history of parking and think that it's bad to charge more, the way you convince them is to do what they did in Pasadena, which is to use all the extra revenue. It's called a parking benefit district. To use all the extra revenue you get from the higher priced parking to pay for streetscape improvements, shop front improvements, rear alley improvements like they made in Pasadena, to spend it where the money is earned. In every place that the merchants have fought higher priced parking and they've lost, the next day they've thanked you. They say, we were wrong, thank you. Our businesses are doing better now that people can find parking near where we are. But it's kind of a two-part deal because the problem is that people aren't necessarily easy to find. They don't find it easy to find the parking structures. So we'll talk in a little bit. But as you already know, and I know there's already discussion, there does need to be better wayfinding to get people to your structures. But the price of the parking on the street, it can't end at 7 p.m. in a district where most of the crowding is at 9 p.m. And we all love to park free on Sundays, and I too feel perfectly gypped when I go to a meter and it's charging me on Sunday. But if you want the merchants to thrive, then you will price your parking to always have that level of vacancy. That means charging more for parking in certain places, and perhaps less in other places. But to have what's called a demand-based pricing system for your parking. And then finally, wayfinding. I already talked about better wayfinding to your parking garages. In about half the cities I work in, I recommend this, which is a national campaign. It's actually a for-profit company, but it's called Walk Your City. Half the places I work don't have clear destinations like yours do that need connecting well, that can benefit from better connection to each other. But it started out as guerrilla wayfinding, unsanctioned placement of signs around neighborhoods, telling people in very cool modern graphics how far it would take them to walk to different places. But it's become embraced by different cities, including, I introduced them to Santa Fe, and now there's a Santa Fe program in the works. But basically, because you have things like the Norton and City Place and Clematis Street that could so easily be connected better to each other, to have a system of signs like this, which cost almost nothing, which probably lasts 6 months before you decide whether to replace them permanently or not, in your downtown, I'm going to recommend that you all begin a campaign like this because, again, unlike a lot of the places I work, there's a very clear application for it here that I think would be effective, for example, in convincing people shopping in City Place to come down to Clematis Street. And maybe even vice versa. I'm more interested in the former, but I think both are valuable. And really helping people to jump the gap across that really unpleasant building to get to Clematis, to cross Quadrille. And so finally, as a small last feature, I'm suggesting that. So that is it. I believe that's the entirety of my talk. I do want to say I've spent very little time congratulating you. West Palm Beach, though, I believe, and other planners in the room can back me up here, West Palm Beach, I believe, is one of the cities in America that has benefited the most from good planning. And maybe that's self-serving as me as a planner to say that. But there's a lot of cities in America that have had a lot of planning, and I do not know a city, really, that's got more to show for it than West Palm Beach. Through 3 or 4 really great mayors, starting with, I knew when I joined DPZ in '93, they just finished the plan with Nancy Graham that fixed Clematis and did so many wonderful things and laid the groundwork of the code that allowed City Place to happen. But I mean, look at this. This is incredible. You've gotten color, first of all. But second of all, I mean, look at this. Who else does this? I mean, it's done, but really amazing what can be accomplished here. So I would argue it's time to move off the blocks perhaps a little bit. And while I've talked about buildings as well as roads, I think the place for improvement where you can do the most, the fastest, the cheapest, and have the biggest impact is just this. This is your public realm. This is where your people convene, where they get to know each other, where they shape your city as citizens, and this is where I think you need to be spending your money and your attention. So that's it. If you want to learn more, here's my book. I always show my Twitter handle if people are interested. But this isn't about me, this is about you. And am I allowed to welcome questions from the commission?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you for a great